nice, a Turkish prison. Yeah, no, this is pretty hot. You guys got to turn some AC on. Welcome, everybody. It's great to have you here. I want to speak on behalf of myself and the leader, just how pleased we are. First of all, that the House Republican Conference and the House Senate Conference are here together talking about ideas. And what we are here to do is come together as Republican conferences to talk about how do we take our principles, apply them to the problems of the day, and offer solutions to the American people. Now, the challenge we have clearly in this particular government is Barack Obama's president. So the kind of agenda we're discussing, the kind of agenda we're talking about forming is what could we do if we had a Republican president? What does 2017 look like if the election goes the way we hope it goes? And that is why we think it's important for us to offer a positive, solutions-oriented approach, an agenda to the American people so that they can choose in 2016 what kind of country they want to have. We think the country is on the wrong track. We think we're headed in the wrong direction on so many issues. Economic growth, upward mobility, poverty, national security. So that's why we're here today to talk among ourselves about how we go forward. What's the better way? What's our agenda? And that's why we're having a fantastic retreat.
Yeah, let me just echo what the speaker said. Our presidential candidates are out there beating each other up at the moment, and that's going to solve itself at some point here in the process. And what Paul has laid out is something that I agree with totally, which is that we're going to do issue development to try to get ready for 2017. There have been examples of that in the past in which newly nominated Republican candidates have picked up ideas that were developed in Congress and made them the centerpiece of their fall campaigns. In the meantime, let me also make the point that we weren't sent here to do nothing, and we're going to be looking for opportunities to make some progress for the American people this year, even though the guy in the White House is not somebody we can do the kind of broad reforms that we'd like to achieve. There are steps in the right direction we can take. One obvious step I would mention, it's not going to titillate the public, but one obvious step would be, for the first time since 1994, do all the appropriation bills. And the Democrats in the Senate who blocked that possibility this year or at least saying the right things. And we're going to give them an opportunity to step up and help us do that.
Questions?
Nikki Haley, in her response for both of you, said that the party should resist the siren call of the angriest of voices. Later clarified that was about Donald Trump. Did you guys both agree with that statement from Governor Haley?
Hey, look, we thought Nikki did a great job. Both of us had a hand in selecting her. We think she's a great future of our party. I did this speech myself in 2011, I believe, and wrote it myself. She wrote her speech. We think she gave a great speech. And so I think what she's ultimately trying to do is talk about how do we have a message that's inspiring, that's inclusive, hopeful, optimistic, and that unites the country. We don't want to have another president like this one that divides the country. We want to unite, and that means listening to all voices, those who are frustrated, those who are inspiring, all of the above.
Yeah, I mean, what people remember about Ronald Reagan was not that he was a solid conservative, but that he was cheerful, optimistic, and upbeat about the future of America. He believed in this country and its potential and expressed it better than anyone else ever has. And that needs to be our message going into the fall of 2016.
Ryan wants an open amendment process on some of these bills. That's going to take an awful lot of time. I mean, I know what you want to do because this isn't going to titillate the public, but this is really a Herculean task to get these bills done.
It is. You know, nothing is done easily in the Senate. But as you all recall, I said at the beginning of my time as majority leader that open amendment process was going to be the rule rather than the exception. We've done that. When you have a bill open for amendment, it presents the opportunity for troublesome proposals from both sides. But we saw what the Senate looked like when nothing happened. 15 roll call votes in all of 2014, no budget for the last 5 years. We're not going to have that kind of Senate this year, and we'll just take our chances. You know, we're big men and women. We're prepared to vote on proposals that are offered from both sides.
Yeah, Chad, instead of just shouting the questions out, let us just pick on you. Chad, I would say we're doing our budget early this year in the House. At least a month early is our plan, so we can get this appropriations process moving. As you know, with the conventions, we lose half of July, so we've got some compression on the schedule that we're dealing with. But we're going to, in the House, have an open rule system, and votes are going to be all over the place because the rule is going to be open. And that's how the system ought to be, especially in the House. So that, I think, is what the founders intended. And like I said at the first press conference I had, we're not going to predetermine the outcome of everything. You know, I don't know where the appropriation bills ultimately go on the floor because we're going to let members, you know, have their amendments, have the votes. That's okay, and that's the system we think we ought to have. How about it back there?
I see Iran deal becomes close to being actually implemented. What kind of a contrast is going to be drawn between the parties given the unanimous Republican opposition to it? Is there any political liability for Democrats?
Well, let me just,
Go ahead.
yeah, let me just say, as far as the Senate's concerned, there are a number of Democrats who are scrambling to try to convince their constituents that they really weren't for this deal. And so I've said, with regard to Iran proposals, any proposal that looks like it can get 67 or more votes, I'm open to. In other words, we're not going to run the Senate floor to allow Democrats to get well from a bad mistake they made on Iran. If, on the other hand, they actually want to make law, bring me 67 votes, and we'll get the floor time.
Senator McConnell, Senator
How about Wong? Yeah.
Sure. Down in South Carolina at the winter GOP meeting, there's been chatter again about a brokered convention.
That's ridiculous.
Can you say with 100% certainty that there will not be a brokered convention?
How do I know? No one knows the answer to that question. I think it's ridiculous to talk about it. Yeah.
Senator McConnell, you talked about your open amendment process. Harry Reid today said that he would like a vote on Donald Trump's proposal to bar Muslims from entering the country. Is that something that you would allow?
Well, let me just say, generally speaking, I've tried to avoid turning the Senate into a studio for the presidential campaign, but it's worth noting that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And so you could expect amendments that they might not like related to the Sanders or Clinton campaigns. But as a general rule, what I've tried to ask the Senate to do is let the presidential candidates run their race, and let's try to do the people's business.
Speaking of the presidential candidates, if Donald Trump or Ted Cruz turn out to be the nominee of the party, are you confident that you and your colleagues in the Republican apparatus will get behind?
Yes. Yeah, we're gonna support whoever our nominee is. You know why? Because it's the Republican primary voter who makes that decision, and that's who we respect. That point one, point two is what we're working on right here today, and what we'll be working on all year is putting together an agenda to take to the country so the country gets to choose what direction we head. And we think the country's heading in the wrong direction. Therefore, we believe we have an obligation, a duty, to offer another way forward, to offer an alternative, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Take our conservative principles, apply them to the problems of the day, present the country with solutions so that they can make a choice, and whoever our nominee is going to be, we think can help carry that forward.
Senator McConnell, yesterday you told the meeting that you intend to pass a budget this year, but spoke to Mike Enzi, Chairman Enzi, on Wednesday. He hasn't committed to moving the budget yet. I mean, is that set in stone that there's going to be a budget this year?
Well, we're certainly committed to trying to pass a budget this year, no question about it. I don't have to remind you, for the last 5 years under the Democratic majority, they didn't do that. And the only time they did do it was when the House said, no budget, no pay. So it's pretty clear that they don't think that's an important exercise, even though it's required by law. And so we're going to make a major effort to pass a budget.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. I think we're done.